right now on the Carolina Traveler.
Of course, you will be a big boy when I get home.
A letter sent from a father to a son 63 years ago. When it was sent, the son was only 5 days old. In the letter, the last words ever from his father. What happened to Private Lawrence Burkett on that battlefield in Germany?
And Mother thought for a long time that, maybe he wasn't dead. Maybe he would come walking in the door.
After 63 years, a family finally gets their answer.
There they come.
In Fort Mill, South Carolina, hope springs eternal.
Tell me about this bungee jumping I heard about.
Well, that was fun.
That's because Ann springs eternal. It's right down the road and right now on the Carolina Traveler, coming to you in high definition.
This story begins in the top left corner of the state of North Carolina. A few miles to my north, Virginia. A couple to my west, Tennessee. Here, a graveyard in Ashe County, North Carolina. In this graveyard, a mother and father, David and Rosa Burkett, rest, but not in peace, because just 10 feet away is a grave marker honoring the son they watched march off to World War II, but never returned, because there's no one buried under Private Lawrence Burkett's grave marker. He's been missing for 63 years, until today. In a quiet cemetery in the North Carolina mountains, a grave sits waiting to close the book on one man's story. A story interrupted by a long silence, 63 years worth of blank pages.
I knew things would be different if Daddy had been home.
I've always wondered before, but even more now, wondered what it would have been like if he had come home.
And there are 63 years worth of unanswered questions for 3 children.
How are you? I'm fine.
It's the day we've been looking for, but I never figured we'd see it.
Well, you have.
Yeah.
In the church next to that cemetery, the book to Lawrence Burkett's life has been reopened.
I have many pleasant memories of Uncle Lawrence, a man I admired and looked up to.
Today, they're writing the final chapter.
But never even given a second thought on it.
Bill Burkett was only 5 days old.
And I think it's just a miracle.
Well, I think it was meant for a reason.
His sisters, Kathy on your left was 7, and Gladys on the right, 10. It was in August of 1944, the last time they saw their father alive. The Burketts lived a simple country life. With 2 little girls and a baby boy on the way, Lawrence and Dora Burkett couldn't have asked for more.
We didn't have anything extravagant, but we never wanted for anything.
But it was 1944, and the world was at war. Lawrence Burkett reported for duty before his son Billy was even born, but he was granted a furlough and arrived home to Jefferson, North Carolina in time for the birth. Private Burkett then requested an extension to stay longer with his wife and daughters and newborn son, but in this telegram, the Army rejects his request. And 5 days after Billy's birth, Lawrence marched off his farm and onto the battlefields of Europe. He was only heard from again one more time by letter.
It's been a roller coaster. I mean, it's all ultimately good, but there, of course, has been some sad times of, that would be natural.
Mountain folk are cut from a rugged cloth. They're quieter than most, keep their emotions to themselves. It's their way.
And Mother, a lot of times she would say, well, things would have been different if Lawrence had come home. And how she did what she did was unbelievable.
It's fitting that one of the few times Bill Burkett showed his grief is when he considered what his mother lost. Dora Burkett, her kids tell me, used to stand for long spells and look out the window and wonder.
And Mother thought for a long time that, maybe he wasn't dead, maybe he would come walking in the door.
I always hoped he'd come home. Sometimes people would ask her, said, well, why don't you get out here and get your man? She said, I don't want a man. She said he was the only one for me.
Dora Burkett died, wondering where her husband was and what had happened to him. The Army said he had been killed in action in December 1944. There was even an eyewitness.
The gentleman that saw Daddy get hit, he was never the same. I talked to one of his sons the other night, and till the day he died, he was a changed man.
But his body and his dog tags were never found.
I feel the same way, because it'd been so long. And see, we'd tried to get answers of what had happened to him, but...
And that last contact, the letter from their father Lawrence, came just before he disappeared.
Dear Billy, will write you a few lines as I am writing the girls and Dora. I have to write my son, this being my first letter to my boy. I would like to be at home with you all, but I can't just now. Of course, you will be a big boy when I get home. Boy. I will close this time. Lots of love, my dear son. Lots of love from your daddy.
After that, 63 years of silence, of not knowing. And then out of nowhere, a phone call.
I got this call, and here is the possibility they think they found the dog tags.
And they found a lot more. But it had been so long that naturally the Burkett kids were skeptical.
I figured it was maybe a hoax, because you know, after 63 years,
He says, don't give them no money if they want anything. You know, you're always thinking of this, somebody trying to pull something on you.
It turned out the phone call was real. The Army, with the help of German search teams, had finally found Lawrence Burkett. The details of how he died are told by the shrapnel still lodged in his bones. He was hit by German artillery and likely buried under dirt and snow. The end of Private Lawrence Burkett's life was a cold one, in the very place where just a few days later the legendary Battle of the Bulge would begin. Private Burkett died in a bitter German winter at the bottom of a trench.
Fire. Aim. Fire.
Lawrence Burkett, a handsome young man, a devoted husband and loving father, a carpenter by trade, asked by his country to fight a war, died in a furious battle. 6 decades late, the young war hero receives his military burial. This story didn't play out the way Dora Burkett had dreamed, but 63 years later, Lawrence did come home.
Hell, it's just beyond words, really. I mean, just so glad that we can bring him home and put him right beside Mom, where he would want to be.
And in this, the final chapter,
she always felt like he would come home.
these once young lovers are finally together again.